If you're thinking about buying a home in Oregon in 2023, this video is for you. We're going to quickly recap what we saw in 2022, what we're already seeing in 2023, and what we expect to see for the rest of the year in 2023. All that starts now. Hey everyone, Seth Marchant with the Home Team Brokers. Welcome back to the channel Living in Oregon, or if you're new to this channel and you'd like to know more about what it's like to live in Oregon, make sure and hit the subscribe button and also tap that bell. That way you'll be notified every time we drop a new video, which is every week. And if you're somebody that's thinking about taking the next steps and moving to Oregon as licensed brokers in the state of Oregon, as much as we love making these videos, we'd really love to help you move here. So you can call us, text us, email us, or click the link below in the description if you want to schedule a Zoom call with us, typically best for people coming from out of state. All right, let's talk about what happened in the 2022 market and what we're going to see here in the 2023 market. All right, we're going to start here with a graph that's going to show us median sale prices for the year for 2022. There was a lot of talk in 2022 of where we would end up at the end of the year. The story for 2022 was interest rates, rising interest rates, which started in 2021. A lot of people were saying, hey, if we get past 3%, if we start getting up into the 4 and 5% interest rates, that's really going to start to crash the market. Well, did it crash the market? Here's the numbers. So the blue bar is the Portland metropolitan area that consists of the Tri-County area, Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington County. So it looks like we started just above 500,000 January of 2022. Where did we end up December of 2022? Closer to like mid fives. So Vancouver, Washington started right at 500 and ended up closer, it looks like, to like 475 or so. So Vancouver, Washington, Clark County fell below where they started at the beginning of the year, but not Portland. A lot of people predicted it would. We had some bets going on there, and the market did slow considerably, and that was due to rising interest rates. You can see here what rates did over the past few years. This is just from a couple of days ago in late January of 2023. Actually, just this morning, I saw that rates are down a little bit more, down to 6.2%. So we saw rates go up into the 7% range in Q4 of 2022. Definitely slowed down the market, but maybe not the crash that some people predicted. Maybe some people are still thinking that might come in 2023. Let's look at some sales numbers here real quick. December 2022, 1,400 closed sales last month. A year ago, almost 2,600 sales. So sales have almost halved in the past month where they were from a year ago. So the market has definitely slowed. Now, for us, the Home Team Brokers, actually, very thankful. December was our best month ever. Each quarter tends to get a little bit better for us, thanks to our YouTube channel and our great viewers that reach out to us. But for the rest of the market, and this really goes for a lot of the country, sales were about half of where they were a year ago. Now let's get into what is propping up home value so much and causing so much trouble for buyers, which is inventory. So as you can see, the red right here, this is 2022. Active listings are way up from 2021 and 2020. So we have a lot more inventory right now than we did. But new listings are actually down. So it's not a bunch of new listings that are coming to market. It's listings that have been on the market, that have been sitting on the market, which is giving us a much greater average total time on market, and known as days on market, DOM. So days on market right now above 50 days, whereas at the height of things, you can see right here, when things were super competitive, when the market was red hot, below 20 days. 50 to 60 days is actually getting closer towards an average and more of a balanced market. One reason why we're seeing this, though, as high as it is, even given everything else, obviously sellers are coming off of this red hot sellers market where they're trying to get the most amount for their home. They're getting a lot for their home, a lot more maybe than they expected. And so some sellers took a little bit of time, or maybe have yet still to adapt and adjust their sale price. So we weren't seeing as many maybe price reductions as you might expect with the type of market that we had. So some sellers slow to react, which is causing higher days on market. Now going into the wintertime, oftentimes if a seller doesn't get what they want, they're just going to withdraw that listing and bring it back to the market in springtime. You do see some of that, but overall time and market, it looks like that's going to continue to go up. Now, anecdotally so far, what we're seeing as realtors, it's actually been a little bit surprising. We're hearing, and again, going back to last month and last quarter, for a lot of people in the real estate industry, for a lot of realtors, it felt dead. Having half the amount of sales as the year before, for a lot of realtors, it felt like things were really, really slow in Q4 of 2022. So far in January of 2023, we're seeing a lot of people showing up at open houses. We are starting to see, again, multiple offers on the houses that are the most desirable. And so anecdotally, early for January of 2023, the buyer sentiment actually seems to be very strong, or at least contrasting that with the previous quarter in Q4 of 2022. It feels really strong compared to where we were. Now, going back to that average and median sale price here, you can see the highs for Portland, almost missed, for the Portland metro area, reached almost 650, getting right back down about to where we are. So where are we headed? Where are we headed going forward? Well, before we take a look at that, we'll get a little bit more into inventory. I just want to give you a quick snapshot of the Portland metropolitan area. If you're not really familiar, this is maybe a little bit helpful for you to get just a real broad feeling as far as prices go. So North Portland, Northeast Portland, Southeast Portland, this kind of area right here, one big grid. The Willamette River runs right through the middle of this, kind of along the I-5 right here. So that separates East Portland and West Portland. See East Portland, Mid-Forest to about Northeast Portland 500. More expensive over on the west side. Going to be the most expensive down here, Southwest Portland, Lake Oswego, most expensive area in the Portland metro area. Here's closed sales going back a little bit further. The red being 2022, the green the year before, 2021, the blue 2020, and then going back into 2019 and 2018, you can actually see we're not even actually quite to where we were in 2018, where we are right now. So as it stands, it doesn't look super positive for 2023 as far as the real estate market goes. These are numbers nationally for total inventory. So you can see total inventory right now, 472,000 homes, single family homes nationally. We have to go back to about 2020 to get to where we were. Now, one thing, this is kind of, if you haven't ever looked at this data before, this is kind of cool. This is new builds. So new construction, the red is single family homes. You can see this is when we had the crash right here. This put a lot of builders out of business. I do remember the crash. I do remember seeing a lot of homes that weren't completed, homes that were halfway finished around the Portland metropolitan area. A lot of those builders never finished. Other builders came in and picked up the pieces, so to speak. But you'd have to go back to the early 90s to the early 80s to kind of get where we're at. And this is in the millions, so about 1 million. That's 1 million new homes were built last year. So you can see this is ticking up, but not quite at the pace that we need it to be, or nowhere the volume that it used to be in the past. So again, that's one of the reasons for the inventory problem. We just can't quite build fast enough. Now here's median list price for the country. Right now, as it stands, January of 2023, 379. Go back a year ago, 375. So we're just above where we were nationally with median list price. So did we have a crash in 2022? Doesn't look like it. More of a correction. What do we expect for 2023? Here's what Moodys expects. They expect to see a lot of red and not much, well, I guess no green. Here's Oregon over here. This is the Portland metropolitan area right here. If you're wondering what this is, the dark red that really sort of stands out, I believe this should be Deschutes County. This is where Bend, Oregon is. If you haven't ever been to Bend, if you ever moved to Oregon, you're going to have to check out Bend at some point. That's where the high desert is. This area has actually been named one of the top retirement destination areas in the country many times. It's booming. It is the number 3 county of people that are leaving Multnomah County. People that have left Multnomah County, which is where Portland proper is, have left for Clackamas County, Washington County, and then following closely behind at number 3 is Deschutes County. So this is a super popular area. Really surprised to see that they think that home values are going to go down 10% next year. But so Moody's expects Portland, the Portland metro area, for home values to go down about 5% next year. Now, Zillow has a little bit more of an optimistic outlook, maybe not a whole lot different for the Portland metro area, but you can see this is the Willamette Valley. This is like where Salem is, where our capital is. They actually expect a little bit of growth there. Now, Zillow obviously has a lot of data. They have as much data on these things as anyone. See, Zillow and Moodys, their view of the 2023 real estate market as far as growth and transactions and the overall health of the real estate market is not super optimistic. And there's probably going to be a lot of reasons for that, aside from low inventory. Let's take a look at a few other things here that are going to impact the real estate market. U.S. savings rate versus credit card debt. Look at that. Early 2020, we look like we're doing so well. This over here, this must be, I don't remember exactly when stimulus came into play, but it must be somewhere around here, spiking that savings, people paying down their credit card, and then 2021, that diverges quite a bit. And this graph is actually a little bit scary for the average person, not looking good for the financial health of the country. This is outstanding auto loan debt. As you can see, it ticks up slowly every year, so nothing exactly new, but it is at an all-time high, just past 1.6, and this is in the billions, so 1,600 billion would be 1.5 trillion. So about 1.5 and change trillion in auto loan debt, which is getting right up there with student loan debt. So the average person, there's a lot of student loan debt, car loan debt out there. Savings are low. Credit card debt is high. These are obviously not good numbers. And as far as the health of the economy goes, and we're hearing people talk of recession in 2023. Now, here's the thing with if we do have a recession, or if we do lose like a lot of jobs in 2023, usually people getting fired from their job, the effects of that usually aren't seen in the real estate market until about 6 months later or so, 9 even to 12 months later. If you think about somebody losing their job, they're going to go out and look for a new job for a few months. It's probably not on their mind to immediately sell their house. They probably assume they can go find new employment somewhere else. They go look around for 2 or 3 months. Maybe it's after that 3-month mark or so, they kind of start to realize, okay, I might be in trouble here if I can't find a new job. They start thinking about selling their home. That may becomes a reality, 5 or 6 months into it. That's when they finally say, okay, tapped out the savings. Now it's time we have to sell our home. They put their home on the market. It might take a month or two to sell, whatever it may be. So at earliest, when people start to lose their jobs, usually doesn't show up in the real estate market for 6 to 12 months. So even if we do hit a recession in 2023, don't necessarily expect that to impact the real estate market too much. One thing to keep in mind, one thing that's going to be different than past decades, home equity. The average owner, the average homeowner in the United States has a fair amount of home equity. For 2022, that increased by 16%. Here is state by state, state of Oregon, $24,000. The total number, the average nationwide, and this is not a good representation because you can see the spectrum that we have here, but the average is actually 300,000. People in California, they're probably really pumping that average, because the average person in California could easily have, $400,000 or $500,000 in equity. Go down here in places like in the South, average homes don't even cost $300,000 in some places. But that's what the number is, though. Although nationally, again, it's really going to, you want to kind of look by state if you want to get a feel. Now, one thing kind of jumps out here too is Idaho, 4,000 for 2022. Now, Idaho had one of the hottest real estate markets in 2022, which is Boise. They saw, I believe, the most growth over the previous 2 years in the entire country. Something like 76% or something like that. And the bigger they are, the harder they fall, they say, right? So the markets that experience the most growth, such as Boise, Phoenix, Arizona, Austin, Texas, they also experienced the most rapid decline in home values. So one thing to keep in mind in this real estate market, if the economy gets to a bad place, if we go into a deep recession, if people are really hurting financially, they do have equity in their home. So it's not going to be like an 06, 07, 08 situation where people had to sell, didn't have equity, had to foreclose, the market was flooded with homes, and all of a sudden, boom, now it becomes a buyer's market where you have way more sellers out there than you do buyers. A few other things to keep in mind as far as the economy goes into 2023. You hear this a lot in the news. They like to talk about this a lot. The unemployment rate. Looks like it's at 3.6% right now. There's the pandemic, as you can see, spiked up right there. Now, the unemployment rate. Here's the trick about the unemployment rate. If you did not know this, the unemployment rate only takes into account people that are actively seeking employment. it's not necessarily reflective of people that are working. So for example, if you got hurt on the job, you're now sitting at home collecting disability, you're not considered somebody that's actively looking for a job. So even though you're not working, you're not counted as somebody that's unemployed. Better metric to look at would be the labor force participation rate, which as of November of 2022, that's the most recent data that the Fed has. It was 62.2%. Again, you can see the pandemic right there. Now you have to go back to about the 70s, I believe, or maybe the late 60s to get back into the 62.2 range. And you can kind of see slowly declining over the past few decades. Lots of people retiring, boomers retiring, automation, taking away jobs. If you don't follow this stuff, you've probably been to fast food place that's automated now, or even your grocery store, you got self-checkout that's replacing, checkers. So the labor force participation rate, not as high as we might want to see in a healthy, robust economy. So aside from home equity, the sentiment for the 2023 real estate market doesn't look good. Again, anecdotally, us realtors that talk to each other, that are in groups, that communicate about these things, we have seen a lot of activity so far. So again, Zillow, Moodys predicting no growth across the entire country for 2023. I'm going to go out on a limb and predict that 2023 is not quite as bad as Zillow and Moodys predict, at least for the Portland metropolitan area. One thing that you're going to notice right now is that it's a pretty balanced market. And so it's really going to vary neighborhood by neighborhood or town by town, city by city. Some cities in the Portland metropolitan area right now might be a little bit more of a seller's market. A lot of them might be a little bit more of a buyer's market. It's good to zoom out and get a national picture of these things, but even statewide and even going county by county at this point is probably going to be too broad. And that's where your realtor comes in. That's where Paul and I come in. That's where we can tell you if an area is going up or down, or where it's trending, where we think it will be. And that's kind of really where that local knowledge is. There's one thing about these algorithms and things like Zillow that make these predictions. They don't factor every single little thing in. There's just things that they can't factor into their models that us realtors take into account. For example, in 2022 and in 2021, see a lot of people, millennials being the biggest buyer group in 2022. And you probably are thinking to yourself, well, how do millennials are bogged down with student loan debt, and they're not making a ton of money right now. How are millennials buying homes? Well, one thing that we see a lot of is their boomer parents letting them borrow money. Boomers have all the money in this country, and they want their kids, just like any other parent, want a better life for their kids than they had. So you see a lot of boomers letting kids, borrow money. So that's something that, that's one of the many factors that can come into play in a 2023 that a model like this just isn't going to be able to factor in. So I'm going to go a little bit on a limb and say that the Portland metropolitan area, maybe not Multnomah County, but I'll stick with Washington and Clackamas County, which are trending up. I'm going to say that they don't see any depreciation in 2023. I think we're going to tick slightly up like we normally do from the winter to the spring market, kind of hit our peak around the summertime, then tick back down in December, a lot like we saw in 2022. I think how we get there is going to be a little bit different. It's just not going to be as dramatic. We're not going to see the rapid rise and the rapid fall that we did in the past year or so. So I think at the end of the year, 2023, we're probably going to end up with somewhere around 1% or maybe 2% growth, as opposed to maybe negative 5% as Zillow predicts. For the Portland metropolitan area in 2023, it's really just going to be neighborhood dependent. It's going to be, and you probably see that yourself if you're a Zillow person, Redfin, Realtor.com, whatever you like to use to shop online, to look at houses. You've probably still noticed yourself some of that stuff that you see that looks really desirable, that looks priced really well. It's pending after 2 days. We're still seeing that as realtors as well. The desirable stuff is still going under contract very quickly. I don't expect that to change in 2023. As far as interest rates go, what we're hearing, we're expecting them to continue to come down. And we're hearing maybe predictions to fall like mid-5s. Now in 2022, nobody would have predicted that rates would have hit 7. Nobody predicted that rates were going to hit 6 in 2022. So those things are super tough to predict, but that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to guess that rates end up below 6% in 2022. I'm going to guess that the buyer sentiment is still pretty strong. Inventory is just not going to change. Might change in 5 or 10 years. Again, you saw new builds. That's going to take a lot of time to catch up. One thing in the future that maybe you don't hear too much about, a lot of boomers getting up there in age. We're going to see a lot of homeowners pass away in the next 5, 10, 20 years. And that might open up the gates for a little bit more inventory. But I think it's going to be a lot more of the same. Low inventory, pretty competitive market. Rates are going to go down a little bit. So I think buyers it's still going to be competitive for buyers out there for the desirable stuff. There's still going to be some deals to be had. One thing to also maybe take into consideration, if you're contrasting now to fall of 2022, especially when rates were around 7%, prices back then were a little bit higher, maybe depending on where you're looking, maybe close to where they were now, but rates being obviously higher than they are right now, definitely a better time to buy right now in early 2023 than it was of Q4 of 2022. Also going to be a little bit less competition. That competition is really going to pick up in springtime like it always does, but now is definitely a good time to buy. I think there's going to be a lot of deals to be had in 2023, but it's also still going to be a little bit competitive. We're still going to see some multiple offer situations. If you have questions about the real estate market, if you want to get in touch with us, if you want to take the next step, you can call, text, email us, or click the link below if you want to schedule a Zoom with us. And if this video helped you, give me a thumbs up, lets me know I'm doing a good job, and feel free to comment. If you have an opinion about the real estate market, if you want to weigh in, feel free to put a comment here on this video on YouTube. And if you want to see more videos about what it's like to live in Oregon and what the real estate market is like, make sure and hit the subscribe button and tap that bell. Until next time, everyone, take care.